All right, demo number 2 for temper in standards. And so we're talking about color spaces. Um, in front of you is VS Code with a bog standard .NET project. Um, you can see all the usual stuff you'd expect from a .NET project. And down here, we are just importing from the local file system our temper translation of uh, a CSS Color 4 conversion library. And what do we do with this? So over here, we've got we've got an Avalon app, and we've got our main window, and I'll show you it in action, but somebody clicks on it, and it is going to end up, you know, doing finding the nearest named color in two color spaces, the RGB color space and the OK Lab color space. And let's take a look at how that works. So I'm starting my .NET project, and if I'm in, it is using cache build, so that's awfully nice. I'm just going to open up a picture, and I can click around, and it's telling me, oh, down here, uh, I just clicked on something white. Surprise. And over here, saddle brown versus sienna. So saddle brown is apparently the closest color in the RGB color space, which is not great for perceptual closeness. And sienna. Saddle should be brown. I'm not a horse person, but sounds reasonable to me. So uh, this is just showing kind of the idea here is the CSS colors specification, obviously of interest to browser vendors, but it might also be of interest to people making Windows native tools for graphic designers. And this is just a very simple example of a native C# app. So going back to Visual Studio Code, let's look at kind of the library that it's calling into. So here again, we've got temper embedded in Markdown, and we didn't copy the entire CSS4 specification. We've kind of referenced it, and we ported some JavaScript code that it had to C#, and you can see it's doing a bunch of matrix operations to kind of convert from one space to another. And yeah, lots of matrix operations. And we've got, I think, conversions, OK Lab, the OK Lab color space is handled here. And then as the CSS specification section 6.1 defines named colors. So saddle brown from that I clicked on earlier shows up somewhere down here. And so what we're doing here is we're basically just creating a big data table of named colors to the actual kind of hex values for those. And it's all just kind of copied from the CSS Colors 4 spec and reformatted into code. I think it would be nice if we had some way to specify this table in a more Markdown compatible way and pull it out using some meta programming to then turn the parse kind of the table entries at compile time and compile that into something. And we're working towards some kind of struct like stuff where maybe we could blit this into memory very quickly by using structs minus pointers, something where you do actually have a memory layout, and we can kind of impose sized records on a byte space for dynamic languages, but kind of more traditional memory access of structs, in languages like C++ that support that kind of thing. And so, yeah, here's the entry for saddle brown, and because we've got this color, the IDE gives us this nice description of it here. And yeah, then we've got tests here again, kind of these get pulled out into C# tests that can then, when you've got your translation feeding into your CI/CD system, these just get picked up and run as normal. So that is the CSS Colors 4 spec. The idea here is, uh, the ostensible audience for your specification is not always the only audience. The ostensible audience for the CSS Colors 4 specification is browser implementers, and they're probably not going to use a reference implementation, but there are other audiences like tools developers, people who make tools for graphic designers, minifiers, kind of tools in the markdown publishing space and the design system space. So if you want a thriving ecosystem, tools ecosystem around your standard, maybe it's nice to seed that with nice libraries that have kind of convenience functions and get everybody on the same page. And, the kind of finding the color closest to a finding the named color closest to a numeric color is just an example of that kind of useful utility function that it would be nice if everybody did the same way. And, you can amortize an awful lot of development and testing over this when you can translate it to all the languages, and, kind of your work on the reference implementation serves a lot of different, potential tool developers.